Ladies and gentlemen, stick around for Talk is Cheap. We're going to take a deep dive into the UN Biosphere program. What does it all mean? Check it out. Welcome, planet Earth and beyond. My name is Pete Hobly, bringing to you a great new episode of Talk is Cheap. And of course, as always, on my right, Mr. Dan Hofeld. How you doing, sir?
Hello, people. I'm doing.
He's hammering away on his...
trying to run the board here and talk at the same time.
He multitasks. I got the easy job. I just sit here and yammer and drink beer. He's got to actually do all the technical stuff. So
I did say, though, if people get arrested and these big arrests occur and the cabal goes down, I will pop a cold one on the show.
All right. I can't wait.
It's been 3 years since I've drinking anything alcohol.
Oh my gosh. I can't go 3 days, man. So, but you know, I am from Wisconsin, so there's a maybe an excuse or a reason there. So
this is episode 166, ladies and gentlemen. We have a poster contest. If you haven't forgotten, to remix our theme, you know, the intro you just heard. So in the link below the bottom, you can click that. All the instruments are there. It must be submitted by June 1st. Remix it. Maybe make a part slower. Maybe just do something on your own and remake your own. It's got to be submitted by June 1st, upload to YouTube or another video platform. Higher quality, of course, is better. Send that link to K2D4Network at gmail.com. Now, this is kind of a catalyst for possibly being a new host on the show. A person asked that in one of the comments on a recent video. I don't know if it was the mud flood video or whatever. Maybe it was the other one. Say, hey, why don't you do, what the hell did he ask me to do for maybe a t-shirt design or something he said to do. But I was like, well, I kind of want this as a catalyst to, like, if you can take music clips and edit sounds together, I know you can get news clips and come on the show and just hit it out of the ballpark with us. And number one, it'll make my life easier because I don't have to come up with all this material. Yep. But then we can also get that. We can get rid of the awkward pauses in this show.
yeah, that might help too, right? You know, because they still crop up every now and then. So
the poster's over here. We can get it sent to you, and
we'll roll it up, put it in a nice tube, drop it in the U.S. Postal Service, and within 3 to 6 weeks you'll receive it these days. Off. Yeah.
I also want to give a shout out to our 3 Patreon supporters. Thank you for supporting the show. Much appreciated. Definitely keeps me going because it feels like, value for value. You're giving us a little something to give you a little something. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it kind of shows that there's some folks that at least enjoy, the content, the entertainment. Maybe it's just Dan's good looks that are bringing folks in. Who knows? But but it does provide at least a little solace in us that we're not just sitting here throwing crap out on the internet, and it's
with the censorship, it kind of is like get depressed a little bit. But what's keeping me going is the Patreon supporters, and it's like, oh, well, as long as they're supporting the show, and it'd be nice if there was higher support there. But it is what it is. Something actually, it just makes me keeps the grind going for me.
Yeah, it's really sad because before all of the big lockdown on the on the YouTube and such, we were doing great. We had lots of followers. We had lots of views, and then the algorithms kicked in and they just started removing us.
I was thinking about when this actually occurred, and I remember the downtrend actually started before I went to Arizona. So this is quite a few years back.
2.5 now, is it?
Things were going really good, and then all of a sudden it was like...
Well, no, 2 years ago we were in Washington. That was before that.
Yeah, so it was a while ago. So I just remember, like, when I went to Arizona, I was like, God, these numbers are just going down. What's going on? And then censorship. We you know, we kind of knew we were talking about those articles beforehand, and it started hitting in.
And then it really started
and now
happening.
it's really kicking in. People can't. So
well, yeah, you know, because somewhere along the line, folks decided that social media platforms were the end-all, be-all decider of what's true and what should be discussed, and they do not like any sort of conversations that, for whatever reason, kind of shed light on what the hell the elite in the world are doing, and it just goes to show that they control an awful lot of things. But
I also tested with. I did those drone videos, farming drone videos. You typed it into Google, like these things have 180,000 views, 100,000 views, whatever. Mine gets 300, 200. So I know only the subscribers are seeing those videos. So it was kind of a test for me to see what the hell was going on. It's like, oh, that's what's going on. It's all locked up.
So tell your friends, tell your family, you know, start including a link to our website on all of your correspondence through work and personal, and let's drum up some support. We like to have fun. We like to talk about some stuff. Dan and I don't always see eye to eye, and that's part of the reason why it kind of brings an interesting spice, although I seem to have the unpopular viewpoints more often than not. So, oh well, what do you do, right?
Oh yeah.
So Dano, have you ever heard of the UN Biosphere Reserve project at all program?
It kind of, to me, when you sent this topic to me, it sounds kind of like Agenda 2030
yeah,
stuff.
and it ties in, and I've been in this situation before when, you know, at the face value, at first blush, a program seems, you know, what a great idea. You know, I am a huge advocate. I wouldn't consider myself necessarily an environmentalist, but, you know, I'm a huge advocate. Let's reduce pollution. Let's, you know, preserve areas and, you know, allow nature to coincide peacefully, you know, with human interaction, right? Because we're reproducing like a virus, and eventually we're going to just consume this planet and kill it. So let's do what we can to slow that down. I don't think.
No, you're totally right.
Yeah, I don't think that we're going to get away with ever killing this planet unless Bill Gates gets his way and gets this global world population reduction happening, which maybe this is part of. I didn't really get into that too much. Right. So, but anyway, this topic was suggested by Lauren Hansen, one of our longtime viewers. Lauren, thank you for sticking with us through the thick and the thin.
She's actually supposed to come on the show sometime.
Good.
We'll
awesome.
see.
I can't wait. Lauren, you have been this internet presence to me that I have no idea, you know, what you look like or what your voice sounds like, but you are always.
She's been on the show before, I think.
Okay,
Not put you on the spot.
Okay, well, all right. Well, I can't even keep it straight that Terry is a girl after this long.
Too many beers. That's what it is.
Yeah. You know what? It's a lot of hops residue in the old brainstem there. But again, I'm from Wisconsin, so I'm pretty. You know, you can't tell me from the other folks from Wisconsin too, but
pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
Not too bad.
All right. On that note, thank you, Lauren, for recommending this because, you know, I think I had heard about this before, but never really paid attention. And as I dug into it a little bit more, and of course, when I look at topics like this, I look at, you know, the pro side, right? The side, you know, what is the people that are trying to execute this? What are they saying? And then I basically type in the same Google search, but at the end of it, I put conspiracy or something like evil or something like that. And then you can find the counterpoint, you know, and I'm going to talk a little bit and share with you kind of a little bit from both sides. And then we'll draw some conclusions or you folks can draw some conclusions. So I think the first question we want to answer, Dan, what is a biosphere reserve? Okay. And basically, according to the UN and their Biosphere Reserve program, a biosphere reserve is a site for testing interdisciplinary approaches to understanding and managing changes and interactions between social and ecological systems, including conflict prevention and management of biodiversity. So basically, it's, you know, a bunch of people from different backgrounds that look at how people and ecosystems interact. Okay, so a biosphere reserve it's not limited to, but it can include national parks, forests, seashores, scenic highways, wilderness areas, wetlands, and preserves, among other things too. But those are kind of the big ones. So when you think of a biosphere reserve, think of these types of natural wild areas, or maybe something that hasn't been disturbed very much by human folks. What's interesting with these is when they establish a reserve, they also incorporate what they call a buffer zone and a transition zone around the designated core area. And here's an important note, Dan. International boundaries, and we're going to talk a lot about the United States here, and state lines can be crossed, but international boundaries can be crossed when you're talking about buffer zones and transition zones. So let's say, for example, and this is going on right now, Canada can set up, one of these biosphere reserves. And because, the U.S. is part of this program, and Canada is, that really Canadian and as well as other international influence could affect how America is operating and conducting their activities based upon something that a neighboring country is doing.
Just when I hear biosphere reserve, like I think of like a bubble.
Yeah,
like
you're thinking like a biodome, right?
Like with an ecosystem in it.
Yeah, no, this is, it's so funny you said that, because I was going to include a picture of a biodome and say, we're not talking about biodome like, Pauly Shore, right? For those, I just dated myself there. That was early 90s.
Oh, I remember that movie.
Yeah, but it's not a biodome. It's not like a dome where that had this. This is actually like, naturally occurring out there. It's a reserve. Another interesting note is that these reserves and the boundaries are meant to be fluid and ever expanding. So think of it as like almost, like a cancer, like that slowly spreads. Although I don't want to say that, because I'm a huge proponent about keeping certain areas wild and, natural and undisturbed, because I think that we as a species are doing an awful lot to hurt that sort of stuff. But we have to be careful, because with that, it may come some more, how do you put this? Some more nefarious agendas that come through that. So Dan, let's take a look at that little that graphic I got. And for those joining on the podcast, we've got a little graphic here pulled up that kind of shows what this biosphere would look like. That includes the core area, the buffer zone, and the transition zone. So within the very center, those that are online and viewing this, that little green area, that is the core area. Okay. And basically that's where most of your research is being conducted. Okay. And trials and testing to see how, the ecosystem can work with certain things. Who knows what they're actually doing in there? Because
what kind of tests are we talking about?
Well, I couldn't find that really, other than just very broad general terms about, and phrases about how we're studying the ecosystem and how it, interacts with people and stuff.
Well, aren't they doing that already? Like, why do you need to have a reservation preserved?
Right. And, that's a good question. And really in these areas, human public activity is severely restricted and sometimes not even allowed. So they really aren't going to allow us to go in there and camp. Maybe we can day hike and stuff like that, but they're not allowing or encouraging a lot of human interaction in there. So in the buffer zone, you've got things like, that's where you're more of your tourism part, your nature walks, your campgrounds, your educational centers and things like that. And then around that in the transition zone is actually more of human settlement. That's where, Dan, you and I may live. So let's say, just down the road, a biosphere reserve gets established. Now we may find ourselves in that transition zone and then find ourselves suddenly having to abide by a different set of rules for how we conduct our, and I'll say business, but I'll just say our, that's not right because we're not running a business, but our lives on that property. And so, here's a good example, Dan.
So, with this graphic, so transition is this is just in this bio area, or is everywhere a transition area?
Well, that's what I'm talking about, because as this center core area will slowly expand, they're going to push out that buffer zone, and then that transition area is going to be ever growing. Okay, so it's meant to, when they establish one of these, to slowly expand and grow and grow and grow. So it's not a stagnant thing. It's not like a line where they're just going to say this is where it is. Their intent is to expand upon this and continue to grow this core area, this buffer zone, and this transition zone. Okay, so
till it's everywhere.
Yeah, till it's everywhere, right?
Oh my God.
So
this probably goes back into like why Bill Gates is buying all this freaking, what the hell was he buying out west? I think it was.
Well, you know, it's interesting.
Farmland he was buying.
You know, and we're going to talk a little bit more about maybe, you know, that's not necessarily part of this program, but where Bill Gates is coming from with that approach. Okay. Isn't it Warren Buffett owns like ungodly millions of acres as well and stuff like
really?
that? Yeah. I think Warren Buffett is probably at least in America, owns the most land as a private citizen. Anyway, don't quote me on that. Check it out. But I believe
it's all public.
Yeah, it's all public. I think that I do recall reading something along those lines. Anyway, so that's generally what a biosphere program is. It's kind of queued up to be, you know, protective, educational. Here, perfect, Dan. For those on the podcast, Dan brought up the UNESCO website.
This is
United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. They're the one that came up with this program. It's part of the UN.
en.unesco.org.
Yep. And if you Google UNESCO, you'll find it. And this is where they have all of the great, I mean, look at that. You know, you've got somebody out in the wilderness, a little cartoon character there's a coffee cup for some reason in there. I don't know. Then you've got
Colombian coffee beans.
Then you've got a guy fishing over there, and then you've got scientists on the right studying the fish. So I'm not exactly sure what those graphics mean, but it goes into very detailed kind of description of what it is. And et cetera, et cetera. So I do encourage you to check out the website to at least educate you from the viewpoint of the UN. So their vision, okay, they have a vision, and I'm going to read this right from their website: a world where people are conscious of their common future and their interactions with the planet. I can get on board with that, right? You know, I'm very anti-pollution. I don't think we should be putting crap in there, and littering and polluting and such. And Dan just pulled up a video, and this was on a Biosphere reserve, right? They're showing this person with a selfie stick and a camera swimming. It's like a beautiful background. Ooh, now someone's on a mountain hiking. Oh, there's a pig.
Pig in the middle of nowhere.
It was a domestic pig, yep. And now they're raking out in the woods. I mean, look at that. That's wonderful nature, beautiful place. I would love to take a trip there, right, Dan?
Yes.
So continuing, conscious of their common future and their interactions with the planet, and act collectively and responsibly to build thriving societies in harmony within the biosphere. Okay. They serve this vision through biosphere reserves and beyond. So they want to, I guess, allegedly build thriving societies within the biosphere, yet they restrict harshly human interaction within the biosphere. Okay.
Funny how that works.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so that was their vision. Okay. Their mission, and this is for the period between 2015 and 2025, because their mission does change at times. So this is the mission we're currently under. They want to develop and strengthen models of sustainable development through the world network of biosphere reserves. They want to communicate experiences and lessons learned and facilitate the global diffusion and application of these models. So, okay, you know, I'm all about sustainability. I'm also about communicating lessons learned and experiences so we can educate people.
Oh, they also have gender equality on here too. Make sure.
So, okay, everybody's equal, right? Facilitate the global diffusion and application of these models does raise an eyebrow for me a little bit. That That seems a little bit suspect.
Stop whining.
Continuing on with their vision, they want to support evaluation and high quality management of biosphere reserves, strategies and policies for sustainable development. We're going to get back to that phrase, sustainable development, Dan. Remember that.
It's a trendy word to use nowadays.
Yeah, and just wait. For sustainable development and planning and accountable and resilient institutions. And the final part of their vision, they want to help member states and stakeholders to achieve the sustainable development goals by sharing experiences and lessons learned, blah, blah, related to exploring and testing policies, technologies, and innovations. Exploring and testing, I'm going to put experimental policies, technologies, and innovations for the sustainable management of biodiversity and their natural resources and mitigation and adaptation to climate change. Dan.
There it goes.
Ding, ding, ding. We got exactly. Give me the ding, 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 ding. Very good. Awesome. So there's that word, climate change. Okay.
Thank you for your call.
Okay. I want everybody to remember the phrase sustainable development, because I'm going to talk about that at the end when we kind of get to the other side of this.
This is fucking, oh my God.
Yeah, Dan's looking. Okay, those on the podcast, and maybe, I don't know if the people online can see this either, but Dan's going through the UNESCO website. He's having a mild stroke.
Look at this shit. Like fostering freedom of expression as United Nations agency with a specific mandate to promote the free flow of ideas by world and image. UNESCO works to foster free, independent, pluralistic media in print, broadcast, and online. Oh, like you guys are all pro independent media. No, it's like you're anti that.
Yeah, right? Yeah, they're not going to let us put a link to our website on theirs. Okay, so the program itself was created in 1971, so that's 40 years, man. It's been around 40 years.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It's been in there. The U.S. joined the program in 1974.
Baby boomers are dreaming this shit up.
Yep. And currently there are 714 biosphere reserve sites on the planet globally. 714.
What? Where's the closest one?
Isle Royale in Wisconsin is one.
So what's... I'm going to look this fucker up.
Yeah, there's a map of them. Although the maps...
Isle, is it island or...
Isle, I-S-L-E of Isle Royale. Yep, there you go.
National Park.
Yep, because it's a national park. So there's our...
see what's so special about these miles.
Actually, Isle Royale is a pretty cool place. But yeah, and so that's just it. They folded in a national park into this program. Okay, which is kind of weird because our national parks were kind of already set up to kind of do some of this stuff. So, moving on. 714 biosphere reserves on the planet. Interesting note.
Oh, this is like up north towards Canada.
Yep. Yeah, it's in Lake Superior.
Oh, I see. They got it all fenced off in the water.
Yeah, right. And I believe Isle Royale, and maybe somebody can correct me on this in the comments or something. I believe they don't allow any motor vehicles on that island. I think it's all, human powered stuff. But I've heard really good things. I've never been, but I've heard really beautiful things about Isle Royale. Would recommend a trip because it is a beautiful, beautiful area up there. In 1984, Ronald Reagan withdrew us entirely from the program because he felt UNESCO was totally corrupt. Okay. And based on a 1983 State Department survey where they surveyed 96 international organizations, and they identified UNESCO as the most contentious toward U.S. interests. Now, flipping back in the 80s, and I know even back then, U.S. interest in general, I'm not a big fan of, because I don't feel like when they talk about U.S. interests, they really mean U.S. Corporate interests. Okay, so, but anyway, Reagan said at some point he didn't like what the heck was going on with UNESCO because they were totally corrupt. Okay, so Bush Jr., I believe it was in 2002, was Bush Jr., or was that Bush Sr.? I can't remember
what
now.
Year?
2002.
That's Junior.
Bush Jr., 2002. rejoined the organization because he felt that the organization had been reformed. So if you know anything about Bush Jr., you probably understand that maybe he really wasn't calling the shots anyway during his presidency. So, but anyway, we joined back in 2002. Fast forward to 2018. At the end of 2018, Trump withdrew us again from UNESCO. Basically stating the same things. I think if Trump's been recent enough, you knew that he hated the UN and thought that they were totally corrupt, ineffective, and did not have America's best interest in mind. But the U.S., he did not withdraw from the Biosphere program, because the Biosphere Reserve program you can still be in but not be part of UNESCO. So he did withdraw from UNESCO.
Yeah, I think he talked about expanding the parks or protections or whatever.
Yeah, and there was a lot of controversy because he delisted some stuff, right, and allowed for natural resources extraction in some areas. And so he did keep his participation in the Biosphere program, but let's stick a pin in that because we're going to come back to that in a minute. What's interesting is that since the U.S. withdrew from the program, China has been attempting to move UNESCO's International Bureau of Education to Shanghai. It's currently located in Geneva. That's interesting that China wants to move the Bureau of Education for UNESCO to Shanghai, because this office supports governments in crafting curricula for classrooms across the world. So China is trying to get their fingers in a little deeper into global education as it relates to natural resources and such. Okay, and I think that, Dan, I don't know about you, man, but I'm pretty sure China does not have the U.S.'s interest in mind. And quite the opposite. They're doing what they can to take down the U.S.
They got China Joe now, so.
China Joe. God. So, all right, I'm going to take a quick moment here. All this talking is thirsty work. Okay. So Dan, are you starting to track a little bit here, seeing some of the moving pieces? You're getting some red flags thrown up in the back of your mind?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
Okay. So
slowly but surely, it's all happening.
So I know, Dan, you're a big Trump fan. So even though Trump kept us in the bioreserve program in, I believe it was 2017, 2018, and 2019, he withdrew 19 sites from the program under his presidency. Okay. So the U.S. now only currently has 28 bioreserve sites. That's down from 47 that we had as a high prior to Trump taking office. And they're natural areas. And coincidentally enough, these biosphere reserve sites, they coincide with some of the richest natural resource deposits the U.S. has. Okay, so I think, and I should have looked into this a little bit, but I think that when we heard during Trump's presidency, he was delisting and opening up these natural areas for mining and forestry or whatever it was that he was doing. Drilling and such. And I bet if we looked into that, we'd find that some of these were those UNESCO sites. And from his perspective, it's like, and I can kind of see where he's coming from. Why would we let the UN decide where we can and cannot extract natural resources? Now, I think we need to do it responsibly, right? It makes sense to do it responsibly, preserve the planet for generations to come. But Trump was having none of it. So he removed us from the Biosphere program, 19 sites. This occurred during periodic reviews because I think it's on a 10-year average or so that the UN comes in, they review the program and the reserve and stuff like that, and that gives you an opt-out chance, because really you can opt out of this along the way if you want to, and that's what Trump did. Was every time one came up for a review, he just opted out of it as he went along. So what I really want to talk about here is what are some concerns of this program? Okay. So we had some red flags.
Control is the biggest one.
Boom. U.S. sovereignty, control of U.S. land now, in a sense, has been handed over to a global committee, basically, right? A global organization, the UN. Okay. Now, even though we can withdraw from that, there's still some huge concerns because there's pressure coming in. And you know as well as I, Dan, that there's money being exchanged, there's pressure being put on behind the scenes that drive these political decisions, right? To keep things in and keep things out. And you and I both know that Trump just thumbed his nose at a lot of this stuff and said, screw you guys, we're out of here. You know, it'll be interesting to see what the current president does, because there's already calls for him to reintroduce these areas back into the program.
Oh, yeah.
So keep your ear on that one. That might be coming. You know, I think the number one concern, and you just mentioned it, Dan, is the loss of the U.S. sovereignty of their lands. All right.
Well, this goes back into you can't build on your land. You got to have a permit, or there's a water little, like they say, little pond there that they consider a lake, so you can't do anything.
Wetlands are a huge thing. If you have something considered a wetland on your property, don't even look at it cross-eyed because they'll come after you, right? Some of the other concerns is that the UN is poising themselves for an invasion of the U.S. And by having these strategically located areas that are somewhat controlled by the UN can give them jumping off points if they ever wanted to launch an invasion. Now, you and I in previous episodes had talked about the UN has a plan for invading the United States, and knowing that foreign forces, they can't count on the U.S. military to do military actions in the U.S. because these military people, they're friends and family, they're too connected. But you put somebody from a foreign country in the U.S., they'll just do what they're told, okay? So I'm going to go right to the back to the beginning here.
There's guys in blue helmets dictating.
So I'm going to go back to the beginning here. Biosphere reserves are sites for testing interdisciplinary approaches to understanding and managing changes and interactions between social and ecological systems, including conflict prevention.
It's all happening.
So they've given themselves an opening here that if, let's say we've got, and actually locally, local populations hate these, and it meets resistance all along the way. So what happens now if you've got a large biosphere reserve that's going to go in, and you've got local population that wants to not do it? Think of the Enbridge pipeline protests, right? You know, that was kind of on the other end of that spectrum. Okay. That was like a bunch of environmentalists not wanting a pipeline to come through an area, so they protested, right? Well, imagine if it's the other way now, and it's a bunch of, I don't want to say businessmen, but it's a bunch of U.S. citizens that are not happy that the UN is coming in and taking over land and telling them how they have to do it. Well, now we need to experiment with conflict prevention. So let's get the UN in there with a bunch of foreign people with these scary black rifles that kill everybody, right? So that really.
So are they? Maybe you're getting to this. I hate to get to it.
No, jump ahead.
Maybe are they staging like vehicles in these?
When I did a Google search of UN Biosphere Reserve sites, UN Biosphere Reserve conspiracy, stuff like that, I don't find actually any, photos or videos that show like bad stuff going on these sites where they have like military installations and stuff like that.
There is, you can find videos though of like warehouses with UN vehicles all over.
Yeah. Yep. And maybe I should have spent some more time looking at it. I didn't. So do some more research out there, folks. And we would love to see some links in the comments, stuff you find. But that's a concern because they've got an area, this core area, right? Human interaction is severely restricted in there. What are they doing in there, man?
For the Wisconsin one, or I guess it's Michigan, actually, technically, if you look at the site, the one you just mentioned,
Isle Royale,
yep. That wouldn't make sense to stage vehicles and have to take a ferry.
Right? Yeah, I mean, I
guess you could have boats.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to patrol between Canada and the U.S.
There's some strategic aspects to these biosphere reserves, right? And you're absolutely right. Where am I here on my notes? Okay. Okay, so UN poising for invasion. That's one of the other concern. Another concern is this is part of the New World Order takeover plan. And if you folks are familiar with the rewilding plan, they're trying to get us to move into urban areas where we're more easily controlled. How better to do that is to take the rural natural areas and just make them off limits to people, right? And you're going to slowly force people into urban centers. And that's really, that's one aspect of this pandemic that we're going through is that, and goes totally against the New World Order plan of rewilding, is that more people are now looking to get out of the cities because they're terrified of catching this quote unquote disease, right?
Well, there's a thing here too that's interesting, not to go too far off topic, but with the pandemic and the quarantining, like they got the camps in Canada for people when they're coming from an international flight.
Yep.
They put them in camps. It's like, if somebody has a virus, you don't want to keep them like all with each other.
Yeah,
they should
right.
go home and
try to self-quarantine or just go about their daily lives, right? And not to digress too far, there was a really interesting program. They did this on National Public Radio where they talked about these people coming in and they had to set up a quarantine hotel. And the people that were on the show, it was a family of 5. They spent, I think it was 19 hours there and were billed $5,000 for their stay, because they were billed the full time that they were supposed to stay there, but their tests came back negative. They were allowed to go, but they said that it was there was no social distancing and no mask wearing. It was like just a regular big party. And they said they went down to the lobby to ask a question. They looked in there. There was 40 people standing shoulder to shoulder in the lobby and not wearing masks. And they said, "I'm out of here," kind of thing.
So Hotel California, you can check in, but you can't check out.
Yeah, right. So anyway, that was one example in there. So another concern is that, and I didn't really tie it too closely to the reserves, but some folks say that this is part of their plan to introduce a global religion. All of these things I mentioned, the U.S. sovereignty, UN invasion, rewilding, global religion, that's all part of Agenda 21, Dan. Okay. So this Biosphere Reserve program is just, in a sense, the kind of that jumping off point for just getting us further down the road on Agenda 21.
Probably have some re-education camps in there somewhere.
Well, they want to educate us on interaction between biodiversity and people, right? So UNESCO's got the International Bureau of Education that's trying to get moved to Shanghai. So just wait until China starts educating us, right?
Exactly.
The program maintains that individual countries will maintain sovereign control over their lands. And countries opt to participate in this program, but they agree to abide by the guidelines set forth by the UN.
God-given guidelines by the UN.
Yes. Okay. So ultimately, this places control of the lands that they designate into the hands of the UN. So that's where they say one thing, you can maintain sovereignty, but you really can't because you have to follow our rules. That's not sovereignty, man. Okay. And again, I made an earlier point, a country can withdraw at any point, but if you've got people that are making the decisions that are on board with Agenda 21 and the New World Order, they're not going to withdraw. And that's why we saw 19 of them go away with Trump. Right.
Exactly.
So I've got a photo up here. And this was used in the United States Senate to stop the ratification of the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity. So here's a simulated map of where this Biosphere program would take us. Okay, in the United States. And for those on the podcast, there is an awful lot of red, and that is your core reserve with little to no human use. Okay, Mississippi corridor is red. Okay, you go out west, pretty much anywhere in the mountains, you're going to be, that's what? You go west of the Rockies and you've got 3/4 of it that they don't want people in. So
that's a lot of
yellow
land.
On this map is a buffer zone, highly regulated use. Okay, the green on this map is normal use. Dan, can you see the green on there?
Very little.
Very little, man. Okay.
The Indian reservations are bigger.
Yeah. And so really, what this is showing us is that this is their simulated ultimate plan. Remember, these reserve boundaries are meant to grow, Dan. Okay. So you're looking at.
They got the Area 51 mapped out here. They made sure to do that.
Yeah. The military is, although there looks to be something right in the middle of it that's set off to the side. So we're looking at this, and the green on this map represents normal use, which is the use that you and I can enjoy in most of our day-to-day life. 10% of the country, less than 10%, Dan?
Sure, hell ain't a lot, that's for sure.
Yeah. So this is where they want to take this program.
Like even New York, for how I guess they always say upper state New York doesn't have much people or whatever, but most of that state's red. Mm-hmm. Like actually Wisconsin looks like it has more.
Yeah, Wisconsin, they, for whatever reason, leave alone. I don't know why, but that's probably because we've overdeveloped it too much. There's nothing there worth going for.
You think New York would be more overdeveloped, but maybe I'm wrong.
The Wisconsin River, though, I can see in Wisconsin River corridor is blocked off. They don't want you on the Wisconsin River anymore. And you go up into the UP of Michigan, is pretty much all red or yellow. I don't think I barely see any green in there. So anyway, this is the master plan, Dan, simulated.
Right.
But master plan.
Of course it's simulated.
So what we're looking at here is 90-something% of the United States controlled by the UN. Okay. That does not seem very sovereign to me anymore, does it?
Seems fair.
Yeah, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
You gotta warn people.
So what can these guidelines include? It can it basically determines how your land can be used. So they can say that, hey, no industry allowed. We can reduce or eliminate human interactions. And actually, already in this Biosphere Reserve program, it has led to the removal of humans and settlements from their designated areas.
Blatantly typed out, no industry, keep human interactions low and non-existent. Like, okay, you don't want people interacting, then you just want to shut everything off. And
yeah, and here's the example, and you can look it up. It's the 1991 Wolong Nature Preserve in Tibet. It was a forced evacuation of Tibetans to make room for giant panda habitat. So there's my example. They basically uprooted people and said, you have to get out of here. Okay. Because it's now a biosphere reserve.
Get out of here. We got guys with blue helmets coming in. No.
So Dan, imagine a reserve. You're 20 minutes from the Mississippi River, right, Dan? Mm-hmm. From here, about 20 minutes.
Actually, probably more like 15.
15 minutes. So imagine they establish a reserve along the Mississippi River, and huge swaths of the Mississippi up here are under some programs and stuff, national waterways and stuff like that. But if they put it in the biosphere program, they have their core area, they could do a buffer, and they say, oh, you know what, Dan, you're in the buffer, and according to UN guidelines, you're not allowed to have a house in the buffer. See you later.
See ya.
Good luck.
Yep.
U.S. government supporting it. They'll come in and run you off.
And then, you don't get any money for your house either.
You'll get 20 cents on the dollar for it. I'm sure they'll pay you that much for it. But however, these reserves I'm going to circle it way back to something I mentioned right when we started the show. These reserves do allow for sustainable development. Okay. And I didn't find actual definition of sustainable development on the UNESCO website, but I did come across other definitions of it as it was referenced, and it's defined as primitive, pre-technological means of meeting human needs. Sustainable development. Remember that phrase, sustainable development. Primitive, pre-technological means of meeting human needs.
Jeez, so we're talking like basic.
We're talking hunting, gathering, living in caves. Maybe will they let us cut down trees to make a shack? I doubt it. So really they say, don't worry, we're going to do sustainable development in here. You just can't have anything modern in there. So, even the Amish wouldn't be allowed, rewind 2,000 years. Okay.
Stop whining.
And hunter and gatherer approaches.
I can't.
Okay.
So what are they going to do? Just like say, here's some wood and here's start a fire.
Well, what they're going to do is they make it so difficult that nobody's going to develop
Wanna
it.
live.
Yeah. And they're going to continue to keep it as what they want. And then at some point, potentially use it for their larger Agenda 21 purposes, right? Step one, let's gain control, right? Keep people out, gain control. Then we can do whatever the heck we want to it. So anyway, folks, I'm going to wrap up here. That's kind of what I had. There's a ton of information out there on this. Just be mindful when we start handing off control of our land to a global entity. Okay. The New World Order, is it going to happen? It sure seems like it's still barreling at us, Dan, doesn't it?
Oh my God.
This disclosure stuff we talk about all the time, and we're like, we want disclosure. Yeah. They will spin that for a need for a one world government.
And
man.
I don't see how free energy, free technology is going to they're not going to let it out if this is the plan. This is what I'm getting at, because that's freeing humanity. They want to enslave humanity.
Well, that's why we need to get Q and his folks that are supposedly giving this information to light a fire under somebody and stop this crap. This is what, they take down the international pedophilia elites. This is going to go with it, man. Okay. Because it's the same damn people calling the shots. I would, we talk about Bilderberger groups, all that stuff. It's the same small group of people calling the shots. Why wouldn't they want control of everything, man? Shuffle us all into these urban areas. We've, this whole quarantine lockdown stuff kind of demonstrates that, hey, if you give humans enough free entertainment and stuff, they're willing to sit inside their house all day, right? It's a lot of moving pieces here, man, and I'm suspicious of them all, dude. All right. But I still don't want to take away from the fact that, I'm an advocate of clean environments, not polluting.
I think everybody is. I mean, but you can't go back. My issue is you can't go back as a civilization in order to preserve, no, you got to keep our standard of living.
Yeah. And until, and this is going to sound so bad because I'm taking a line, I'm taking a side of Bill Gates here. Is you can't do that until you get the people off the planet, right? Because we're constantly expanding. We're always going to be eroding away at that. Because I just don't feel that technology is keeping up with the rapid pace that we're reproducing at. And so part of me,
they should just get in a spaceship and go to a different planet.
Well, we're gonna go F up Mars here soon enough.
Bill Gates,
man.
he can go go to a planet where nobody's there. There, your dream is done.
Well, and that's the funny thing, because you look at even Bezos, Gates, Soros, all these guys, dude. They could buy tens of thousands of acres. They could buy a whole chain of islands somewhere and never see another human being ever be impacted. So they're part of something in the future, man. They've signed up. They're never going to see the goal of what they're working for, but they're trying to set it up for who knows what.
It's like David Rockefeller take over the world. But
David Rockefeller?
If you believe he's dead, I think he is. But
but you're basically, their efforts are going to give this reward to somebody that they don't even know.
I don't know.
Yet,
it's
right?
more of swearing allegiance to Satan or whatever the cult is.
It's just another religion. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it's their job to save the planet.
The Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, whatever. Yeah, they're in a group, and maybe part of their debt they owe them is pushing this agenda because they were given what they were given by being a member of this group. Who knows, man? But anyway, just be mindful of that. And be wary and
take it with caution, because researching a lot of this shit, you kind of get depressed after a while.
You really do. And Dan, for a person like you and I, we are just not in control of this at all. I'll be honest, I've lost a lot of oomph because where I want to be right now, I want Trump to do his fucking job, clear that shit out,
And we should be talking about the new technologies. I want to be like breaking down like, hey, here's a flying saucer that can go over to Mars, and this is what they're doing on Mars. Like break this shit down
this
and
is how
record
it's
them. That's exciting to me.
Yes.
That's new stuff.
Yeah, and this is how it's
Not
making
how
your
bad
life
it is.
easier. This is how it's fixing poverty, fixing education, and making everybody. You want to stop mass shootings, man? Let's fix society, dude. All right, and that's one key piece of it.
And then fix society, but to fix society, get people off the drugs. What's causing people to take these drugs?
Hold on.
Those are sponsors.
Let's what kind of drugs are we talking about here, Dan? Let's not
pharmaceuticals.
Okay, good. All right. I just wanted to clarify that, because let's not get too crazy here.
It's like everybody's depressed, so they put them on this depression pills, and then that just makes it worse.
Yeah, and oh god, we're gonna digress and go.
Yeah, we better wrap the show up.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you pulled some nuggets out of this one. Do some more research. Dig into it, folks. Be careful out there, and don't give away your freedoms just to try to save a tree, man. Just be smart about this, okay? Thanks, everyone. Planet Earth and beyond. This is Talk is Cheap, where cheap is talk, and talk is cheap.